Welcome back. As my rapid rating on chess.com continues to drop, mostly due to me missing tactics during games, I'm going to try to solve some puzzles today on chess.com, which should help me spot and solve those tactical problems in the middle of games. That's the whole idea of solving puzzles. I'm going to click there now. I don't know why that popped up. That's irritating. Okay. Hopefully it won't do that during every puzzle. If you watched my last puzzle video, you'll know that I started it at 1781 and worked 13 puzzles and only ended up at 1782, so I was having some trouble. The first thing I look for is checks, captures, and threats. Now, I think here I have a checkmate in 2. I think I have to check here to force the king over 1, because that would be the only legal move in that situation, and then I would have checkmate with my rook on the corner in h8, because my king would be protecting the rook on g7. I don't see anything else. If I try to check down here, their rook gets it. If I try to check here, well, they can just move over or go between the rooks. So I think it has to be rook to g7. Nothing can capture it there. And then this should be mate. Oh, I thought I took long enough that I wouldn't have gotten 9 points for that, but I did. So that's good. Wait, that one only has a pass rate of 55%. Suggest theme. There is no theme listed. I'm going to click mate in 2. It is still so weird that that drop-down box doesn't show. I have no idea why that's the case in this recording software. Okay, my queen is under threat. Let's see, I do have some checks, like this one here, that of course draws the king out, and then both my rook and knight are hanging at that point. There's this check, which I think forces the rook to capture, and then I would have a follow-up, but then the king escapes, and in none of those cases can my other rook help here. I also have this check. That's a little less forcing, because in that case the opponent has 2 choices. They have the option of moving down or taking with the rook. But my other check is knight to f3. That one also looks bad. The knight can take, the pawn can take. No, the pawn can't take because the pawn is pinned. Okay, so that limits things a little bit. If I check with the knight could take, but the king could also just move out of check. I'm looking around the board. I don't think that my bishop here has any effect. It is possible for the bishop to move over if the king ever got up here, but it doesn't look like it's going to, so I think that bishop is out of play. This rook also appears to be out of play. I don't know what it can do. So it looks like it does come down to these 3 pieces, the queen, the knight, and the rook. And it might not be checks and a checkmate. That's just the first thing that I check for because, well, number 1, those are the most forcing moves. Number 2, if there is a checkmate, then even if there's a great capture somewhere else, the checkmate is better, obviously. I think should be obvious. Okay, but I've checked for 4 checks. Okay, I checked 4 checks. Now let's look at captures. I can take the bishop, and then their queen will capture back with check, and I guess I would have to move out of check, and then they would take my knight. Okay, that doesn't look good. I can't capture this rook on this turn. I can move my queen out of danger, for example, to here or here, but moving out of danger is almost never the answer to a puzzle. Unless you're in check. Sometimes puzzles start with you in check and you have to get out of check the right way. I've had several of those recently. But it's probably not just moving the queen out of danger here. This one is stumping me. I don't see a continuation from any of those checks. Like I said, the only one that leaves the opponent only 1 move is this one. That leaves them only the 1 move. And then I would get their rook. So I would have a rook and a pawn for a queen. Their king would get out of check, and then I wouldn't have anything. The rook takes first. They have 2 choices. As I said, they can take with the rook or they can move out of check. Let's examine both of those. If they take, then I have mate. So that looks like that. I mean, that one looks promising. They can't take my queen while they're in check. Okay, so if they take, I have mate. So let's assume they won't take. Let's assume they would go down to h1. Then I could take their rook. That's check. I think they would only have 1 way out of that. That would be the queen capturing, because the king couldn't capture because my queen is still back here. Once their queen captures, then I would get their bishop. So I would have gotten a pawn and a rook and a bishop for a rook. And then again, if they took first, the other way's mate. Okay, that's got to be best. So I'm going to try that. Okay, and they did go back like we expected, so I'm going to take it. When they take back with the queen, I'm going to take the bishop. No, that wasn't it. Well, thought we had calculated that. Okay, if it wasn't that, which again, they would take back and I would get the bishop, then I would be ahead on material. So if it's not that, I have this follow-up check, but that just brings the king forward and then their rook is facing my queen and still hanging. Wait, am I supposed to take this first? I don't think that's good because again, that puts me in check and I lose the knight. Am I supposed to just move the queen out of danger now? Threatening mate? The other way, I got a piece. I am going to click the analysis board and try to figure out what happened there. Okay, so we correctly surmised here that the rook capturing is best. And of course, if they took with the rook, as it says, then it would be mate in one right here. So they move out of check. Okay, and it says if I take here, that's my third best move. Really? Okay, I guess I get it. No, wait, no, I don't. If I take there, yeah, they would have to take with the queen. That's the only legal move. Oh, and it says I would take the queen then, not the bishop. Really? What? Okay, and it says that takes us back to nearly even with the white having a slight advantage. Okay, they take here, and it says I would take there, but why wouldn't I take here? Oh, because then they have mate. Oh, well, that's why that failed. Okay, but the only move that leaves me with an advantage is putting the queen up here, and then what do? It says their best move is to give away the rook here. That delays mate the longest. That right now I have a mate in 3, no matter what. I mean, it looks like this is mate, but then why wouldn't they defend against that by putting the bishop here? Oh, because this is mate 2. If they put the bishop here, I have mate in two different ways. I mean, mate in 1, sorry. Wow. All right. Well, let's, can we restart the puzzle? Okay. I got this right, but I got the next one wrong. It was just moving up here. That's the way it goes sometimes. Sorry that took so long. I couldn't see it. And I'm probably never going to see a full mate in 5 unless it's a ladder mate, simple ladder mate on an empty board. But in this case, I had to see that everything else failed. And the move that I had selected definitely failed to them having a mate in 1. I should have been able to see that, I think. So I should have looked for something else. Okay. I have 1 check here and only 1 check. I think in that case, the king would have to take. Then I could check again with my bishop. And my rook's cutting off this file, so the king couldn't come over that way. It would have to go back, and then I would have mate with the rook. Okay, I think it may have given me a slightly easier puzzle since I failed the last one. I've noticed on chess.com that happens. Not only did my rating go down a little bit, so I should be getting slightly easier puzzles, very often, when I fail a puzzle, the system feels bad for me and dips way down 200 or 300 points in the rating to find me an easier puzzle. And that looks like that's the case here, but I'm going to check just to see if there's something easier. There's not like a discovered attack on their queen because that's not a check, and their queen's defended. So that doesn't work. I don't think it works to put the bishop here first. For one thing, they could just move the rook at that point. For another thing, they could take my queen at that point, and I could take back, and then they could move their rook somewhere. So yeah, I think it's the queen's sacrifice for the rook, which forces the king into the open. There's no other choice but for them to take. And then there's no way for them to block this check with my bishop on c5, and that forces them back, and my rook delivers the mate. Yes, that one was rated 1410. Theme was back rank. I'm going to add the theme of mate in 3. But yes, it definitely gave me an easier one because I had failed the previous one. Now we should probably climb back up into the harder ones, which obviously I'm having trouble with some of them. I am playing with the white pieces. The opponent is coming down in here, but I don't think they quite have a checkmate yet. Although they're getting close, getting very close. I think I would have a few extra ways out of that. But it's my turn. I have 1 check here, and I have a check with the pawn. Those are my only 2 checks. I should follow those out to see how good or bad they are. If I check with the rook on e7, the rook is protected by both the pawn and the knight. The king would only have 1 legal move, and that would be to step aside to d8, because it couldn't come the other way because my knight is also guarding that square. My rook would be cutting off these, pawns guarding there, rook's hitting that. The king would have to go to e8, sorry, to d8. So then would I have a follow-up check at that point? I mean, I would, but then their rook would just take that, so I don't think that's it. And I couldn't follow-up check here because my own pawn is in the way, and my own rook would be there in the way. So maybe that's not it. Let's look at the other check, which is the pawn. Now that is a pawn fork, protected by the rook, so the king can't take. None of their other pieces can capture on f7. That would be hitting both of these pieces. Again, my knight is guarding f8, so the king couldn't come that way. Okay, so let's try f7 check. My knight is guarding both of those squares. The rook is guarding here. My pawn's guarding there. So that leaves their king 2 choices, d8 or d7. If the king goes to d8, I capture the rook with promotion, and that's check. And that's mate, because my rook would then be cutting off this whole rank because my pawn is out of the way. If the king went to d7, again, I capture the rook with promotion, discovering the check from my own rook, and the king has to get out of check one way or the other, and then I would win their rook. Okay, so it's probably the pawn check. Oh my goodness. All of that calculation, and it was just one move. Well, it says less than half the people passed that one, but it is only rated 1393, so even lower than the last one. And the target time was 8 seconds. Next. They have taken my rook. That's going to be checkmate, except it looks like I can checkmate first. Oh, and I got that one fast enough to get 12 points for it. Well, I've got 3 in a row. It says I'm doing great. I don't feel like it, especially the one that I missed. It felt so complex, and probably puzzles around this rating range shouldn't feel that complex to me, because if you haven't been a subscriber on my channel for very long, you won't remember that I did a previous puzzle run, and I did another one before that. I had my puzzle rating up over 2,300 in the first puzzle run, which is something like a year ago, and I got stuck. So I reset my puzzle rating and did another one, and that time I got up, I think, into the 2,300 or 2,200s before I got stuck and reset it again. Now I'm getting stuck in the 1,1800s, so I don't know if the puzzles are getting harder or I'm not focusing well enough. I'm not sure. This is one of the ones I talked about earlier. I am in check. I have 2 ways to get out of check. Only one of them is good. I can get out of check by moving to h8, and I can get out of check by moving to g6. Those are my only 2 choices, I'm pretty sure. I can't block the check. I can't go there because of their king. I can't go there because of the rook, and I can't go there because of my own pawn. So 2 choices. Let's follow them both out, because those are the only 2 choices. I can't move my rook or my pawn. So king to g6 gets out of check. Then what do they play? They could check me again, but then I would take it, right? Okay. They could check me again here, but I would take with my pawn, and then they would be in check, and I would be about to promote. What else could they do? I guess they could try to bring their king so that they could check me this way and win the pawn, but that doesn't help because I still have a rook. Wait, I am playing with the white pieces, right? Okay. In my last video, I went through a whole series of evaluations and calculations and then realized I was playing with the wrong color. I should have checked that first. I mean, that looks good, but let's see what the problem with the other one is. What if I play king to h8? What can they do then? They can't check me again other than coming here, in which case I would take them. But what could they do? In that case, they could come after my pawn, and then I could come back, and then they could check me again, and we'd be in the exact same situation. So I don't think it's that one. That's the reason I don't think it's that one, is because, yes, they go after my pawn. Now, when they did that, I could check them, but then they just move, and then I have to come back and guard my pawn, and they go back and check me again here. So I think coming out to g6 is better. But again, what are they going to do? I'm not sure what they're going to do at that point, but I think I have all the bases covered. If they move their king, I check them and win their rook. If they check again, I take it. If they check again here, I take it. I guess, they could move their king over, but they wouldn't want to because I could check. They would have to block with their rook. Then I could check with the pawn. They would have to go in the corner, and then I would take their rook. Okay, so I'm going to play king to g6, and I've probably overcalculated this just like last time, but I think that one's better than king to h8. Oh, it was right, and they went way back here for some reason. Okay, I suppose trying to get behind my pawn or trying to check me over here on g1. One of those 2. I have the option now of checking them. I have the option of getting behind my pawn. Where do they go if I check them? Well, they can't move over one of those 2 ways, right? And they can't come here or here because my king cuts off those squares. They can't block. So that would leave them only 1 legal move. If I checked them, they have only 1 legal move. Then I could move the pawn forward. And then if they got behind it, that would be okay because I would just promote with my rook over there. And I know how to checkmate with just a rook. So I think checking is fine here, but I also don't know. What about advancing the pawn? If I advance the pawn first, I think they get behind it, but then I check. They have to come here and I advance. So it looks like it'd be the same, but they don't have to get behind the pawn. If I don't check first, if I do this first, they could check me. And I have to leave the defense of my pawn. And if I keep trying to come back, we could end up with a perpetual. So I think I have to check first. Oh, that was right. Okay. I had to breathe a huge sigh of relief after that because now I have failure anxiety a little bit, especially since I'm on video and especially since I did so poorly in my previous video. But I think I calculated the problems there correctly. A lot of times I leave some option unanalyzed, and that's the one that the computer chooses, and it always surprises me. Or that's the one that they would have chosen if I had played that, but that's the wrong move. So this was best because, again, it leaves them only one legal move. And I think I would advance my pawn then, but I'm just curious and I want to go to the analysis board. Well, we got all the way to here. Yeah, they have only one legal move. And then, yes, okay. My best move is to advance the pawn. Surprisingly close is just a check again, but I don't know what that would accomplish for sure. I would advance the pawn. It says their only real choice here is to check me. Or just move the king around, apparently. But let's say they checked me. I would have to go to one of these places. I don't think I would want to go in front of my pawn where it's currently not defended by the rook. So I'd want to lead the rook away from my pawn. Like this. And then, yeah, their best move is to check me again. I would just zigzag toward them, basically. And now they want to get behind my pawn. That's their best move. And yes, I would promote. Okay. Just checking to make sure I had the right idea, the right reason for playing what I played. And I did, so that's good. By the way, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. If you're lower rated than me or near my rating, my hope is while you're watching that you can learn something as I'm learning it, or figure it out with me, or figure it out before me and shout it at the screen while I'm still figuring it out. If you're higher rated than I am, which I know is some of my viewers, I've done a survey, I've had people comment. I always appreciate any advice, any input that you have. If there's a better way of thinking about something, if there's a general principle in certain positions like this, like it's been a while since I studied them, but like this might be very related to the Philidor position or something like that. I don't think so. In the Philidor, the pawn was closer to the middle, right? But anyway, if you're like an 1800 or a 2100, something like that, always feel free to leave a comment explaining if you feel like it. I know most chess players are males and most males like explaining things. I don't mind having things explained to me if it's obviously something I didn't understand. But just getting that out there. Let's click the green button, look at another puzzle. Oh, this one's easy. This one's just mate in the corner because they don't have a way out of that. Oh, that was 1759. So if you haven't gotten this high in puzzles yet, keep your head up. There's maiden ones at 1759. This was just a ladder mate. King trapped itself and had no way out. I don't know what they should have played instead, but that's what we did. The theme was passed pawns. Oh, we have a good laugh here on this channel. If you don't watch very many of my puzzle solving videos, but you happened to make it this far in this one, the theme is passed pawns on so many puzzles that are unrelated to passed pawns that it's ridiculous. There are passed pawns in this puzzle, but that's not the theme. The theme was mate in one. Okay, they wanted a rook trade, which is why they moved it here. I'm guessing that I shouldn't trade for it, right? That makes sense. On principle, if that was a bad move for them, then it's probably bad for me to take. Or maybe that was a bad move because I can take. But then they could just take right back, and then we would still be even on material. Okay, I'm guessing there's something else here, like a check. But I think those are my only two checks, and I think both of those are bad. They would take my queen on d3. They would take my queen on g6. I'm going to guess that one reason that was bad is because it left off the defense of their 7th rank. And now my rook can go there. And then I'm threatening checkmate. That's my guess. So what do they play if I put my rook on e7? It's a dark square, so their bishop cannot attack it. Their rook can't go back. I mean, their rook can go back, but it won't make any difference. It won't stop me from mating back here if they play rook to d7. Rook to e7. My knight's not hanging. This pawn is hanging, but would they take that with me having a mate here? Or would they try to run? Running won't help. What do they play? Can they check me? I mean, they can, but I'll take it. Then they could check again, but I'll take that too. I don't see a downside. I'm looking around. The only checks that they have is the queen in the corner, forcing my king down, and then the rook giving itself up as well. And I don't think they can get out of that mate threat there. There's no way that they can guard that pawn other than by putting the rook back. So I'm going to play rook to e7. Oh, they did check in the corner. How about that? Well, I have to take it. Okay. Oh, wait, why? It went on for one more move because it was forced. Who's going to fail the puzzle at that point? It's the only move the computer will let you do. Oh my. Well, there's probably a reason that I don't design puzzles, so I shouldn't be too hard on the people who do design puzzles. And maybe the puzzle was computer generated. Going on. I do have a few checks. I like this one. Queen to g1. And the reason I like it is because of where my knight is. Their only way out of the queen to g1 check would be for them to capture with the rook. And then I think that would be mate. Knight to f2. Because you can't block a knight move. You can't block a knight check. And they wouldn't have anything left to take it because the rook had moved over. And the king can't come out because my rook is still back here pointing at that square. 13 points. Okay, that one was rated over 1800, and I probably wouldn't have gotten that one a year ago. I don't know, maybe I would have. So you see, I have a little bit of a conundrum. It's sometimes I think I'm getting worse because I'm getting stuck on lower rated puzzles, but other times I think I'm getting better because I don't know that I would have seen that. Anyway, mate in 2, queen sacrifice. Both of those themes are correct. Let's move on. By the way, I just realized I have already gone over 30 minutes on my end. Hopefully I will edit as usual on your end. I do not have any checks in this position, so it's not a check. Well, that takes that option off the table. I can't check with the knight. I can't check with the bishop. Can't check with the queen, or the rook, or my king. Interestingly enough, you can never check with your king. Okay, I'm not sure why they would have played that, unless it's a trick. Is it a trick to take this piece? Because well, my bishop is defended. What if I were to take their bishop first? No, I think they would take back with their rook, pinning my knight there. Okay, what do they play if I take this knight? Because it looks like they just gave it away for the pawn, right? I think I had a pawn there probably, and they wanted to weaken this structure up so their king could or queen could slide in here at some point. But if I take, sorry, didn't show up in the video, but something just popped up on my screen, and okay, go away. If I take, what are their options here? I mean, are they going to try to do this so that when I take back, they still don't have a check, and that pawn's still defended? So do I just get a piece? If they take here, I take back. Is there some other sneaky thing? I mean, I could retract the bishop to threaten the queen for a second, but isn't it just going to slide in there and protect the knight? I mean, it might. I don't know if it will or not, but I think I should just take it. It's probably a trick. It's probably a trap. I don't see anything else, but it feels like I'm going to fail if I take the knight, but I'm going to take it. There was some problem with that I couldn't see. So it's something else. Is it taking the bishop? Oh, it was taking the bishop, even though I pointed out that they could take there and pin my knight to my queen. I didn't even notice that they could do this fork here, which is a check, so I have to get out of it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 ways to get out of it. I have to choose one. Well, even if I had guessed the bishop capture right on the first turn, looks like I'm going to fail on this turn because what's the difference between all of those? Now the problem with G2 is that they take my rook and I'm in check again. And then when I take back, they get my bishop. That's the problem with G2. What's the problem with H1? Problem with H1 is they can check with their queen on H3. Oh no, they wouldn't because my bishop is guarding that square. What's the problem with these two then? Okay, the problem with F1 is that they can go back and check me or slide the queen. No, they wouldn't. They would go back and check me. So it's got to be F2 then, because all those others have problems. Well, no, we said that's not a problem. If I go to H1, they're going to take my rook. When I take back, no, I won't take back. I would take their queen. They're not going to take the rook. If I go to H1, they're going to take the bishop, right? Or move the queen out some other way. So I should go to F2. Oh, and then take the knight. Now take the knight. What's the difference? It says the theme is pin. Well, it's a pin now, and that's what I was worried about. All right. Well, they should have captured my bishop straight away, and I would have taken back with my knight. But they didn't capture with my bishop. They sacrificed the knight for that pawn. Now, if I take it, it's... okay. Their bishop's guarding that square. That's why I have to take the bishop first. That's what I didn't see. Their bishop is currently, once their queen moves here, their bishop would be guarding the queen. So if I take the knight, they would have a follow-up check. I would only have one legal move, which would be to go back to where I was, and then I guess they could bring their bishop up here, preparing some sort of checkmate. I don't know. But that would leave us drawn, according to the engine. This leaves me with an advantage. And it was their best move to check here. And this was my only winning move, okay? Because if I had gone to, well, H1's not even listed, so I don't know what they would have played there. I thought if I went there, they would have taken my rook, and then my rook would still be hanging, so I would have to move it. This is better because their queen is under threat, and their knight then would be under threat. This part I guessed correctly because I'm threatening this piece while they still have to take care of the bishop. And it makes more sense for them to take care of the bishop with the rook, and now this is pinned. Okay, the reason that I had to take the bishop before the knight was because their bishop was protecting their queen. I understand that. I just missed their bishop. I saw their bishop pointing at my bishop, but I didn't see their bishop guarding the queen. I don't know why. I only saw one of those two diagonals. Okay. Well, I didn't lose a ton of points for it, I guess. Doesn't look like I dropped too far. Well, looks like they want to take my rook. Don't know that I want my rook to be taken. right now. I don't know that I want to take their rook because then their their king is out there in the middle and can get to their pawns. Let's see, just to count this out. If I take their rook and they take back, and then I go for their rear pawn, then they're in time to protect it. That seems straightforward enough to me. But what if I do if I don't take the rook? If I check, they're just going to block there. Wait, and then I take it, and so their king ends up on d1. So when I move to take their rear pawn, they're not in time to protect it. Because I would have this choice of the trade here or the trade down there. Well, I like that. So I think of those two moves, it's worse to take the rook. So far my candidate move is to check on e1, which forces them to block, and then I take and they take back, and then I move my king here to get their rear pawn. Do I have any other candidate moves? One idea, I suppose, would be to come back here to attack the pawn immediately. Then they could protect it with their rook, or they could check me. But if they checked me, I would come out, and I would be threatening that pawn. So would they have something better there? They would. They would be able to come down here, threatening both of those. That's not both. There's not a word for 3 that means the same as both for 2, is there? I can't think of one. And throth just sounds bad. But yeah, they would be threatening basically all 3 of those pawns. Not really that one unless I moved this one. Okay, so I think it's better to go back here. That forces the trade on d1, which allows me to pick up their f pawn. I'm going to try that. Well, that worked out exactly as I thought, so I'm happy with that. Satisfied. I didn't quite get back to my peak that was there in the middle, which I don't know how high that was because it just says what the puzzle rating was, but it doesn't say what my rating was at that time. Interestingly, that pop-up does show in the video, but when I click on a pop-up like suggest theme, I see a list here, but you can't see it. So weird. Normally I would do one more just to try to get back to my peak, but since I don't know exactly what the peak was, I think I'm going to be satisfied that overall I gained about 60 points in this video. So I should be okay with that. I started at 1782. That's about 61 points. And I definitely understood the second one that I failed. I had to get the bishop first. What was the first one that I failed? Let's look at that again. I think I understood that one eventually too after I saw that my plan led to them checkmating me in one move, on g7. That's the important part for me, is that when I do miss something that I later understand it once I follow it through. Same thing with games. I don't mind losing if I can go back and see why I lost, what I did wrong, and understand why that was a wrong move. The ones that are really frustrating is when I lose a game and go back and I can't find why I should have played, G-pawn instead of the H-pawn. I can't tell the difference even after looking at Stockfish. But on these, I understood. Hopefully you did too. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.